So CID wants to know, okay, he said it took years to get ETH to where it is now, and ETC was neglected for quite a while. Can we anticipate a speedier development time for ETC to catch up, and then and in turn compound the return on the value of the coin faster than expected? I picked this question because I have followed some of your price analysis, which we'll get to at the end. So guys, be patient, okay? And it's ETC is taking a while to catch up because it's trying to get over the attacks. Okay, to be clear, Donald just explained they are not hacks. The code hasn't been compromised. Okay, and so they are just attacks, and it has survived all of them. So I'll leave you to answer the question. My bad.
Yeah, ETC has never been hacked. What happens is that all proof of work blockchains, because to have a global consensus of 10,000 nodes in places like North America, Europe, Africa, China, India, and the most remote places, and for everybody to know to follow one chain and one history, they all have to follow the longest chain, which is the chain that has the most proof of work power, the proof of work done on it. And when somebody has more than 50% of the hash power of the network, they could, if there is a chain that everybody's following, and suddenly this new group has more hashing power, and they propose a new chain that is longer or with more work, then everybody has to move to that new chain anyway. And that's where a transaction could be reorganized, withdrawn, no? And that's a double spend. Another thing that I want to clarify is that happens all the time. O sea, Ethereum, Bitcoin, Ethereum Classic, all proof of work blockchains, in the short term, many times a block gets reorganized because sometimes one block gets propagated faster, and the majority or many nodes are working on that one, and suddenly another part of another world of the network comes with another block that happens to have more work, so they all switch to the new one. So these switches or mini reorganizations happen all the time. A malicious reorganization where they reorganize 100, 1,000 blocks with a double spend, those are the problems, and that is a vulnerability that all proof of work blockchains have, and it's the famous 51% attack. But at the same time, every network that is not proof of work is prone to a 33% attack. So anything else is even less secure. And again, an attack is only someone reorganizing a transaction where there's only the victim is the other person. It's not that the whole chain is reorganized or everything is tampered with. It's only one transaction. There's a perpetrator and a victim, and usually what I recommend is to solve those things off blockchain. So what happened is that Ethereum has been since 2016 bigger than ETC. And both have the same mining algorithm. So when Ethereum was more or less 30% bigger in terms of hashing power, it was possible to get a small amount of that hashing power and start directed to ETC and do the 51% attack. So that's the reason why in 2019 there was one attack that they stole, I think, $1 million or $2 million from an exchange. And then in 2020, there were 4 attacks that I think they stole more or less $6 million or something like that from another exchange. And that happens because of this reason, because there's a lot of hashing power in Ethereum. Ethereum Classic shares the same algorithm. So if somebody rents some of those computers, they pay them to rent them for 2 days or 3 days just to do the attack, they could redirect the hash power from Ethereum to ETC. So that brings me to the solution. What happened in 2020 after the attacks of August of 2020 is that the Ethereum Classic developers implemented 2 things. One is called MESS, MESS, that I don't remember what the acronym stands for, but it's basically a solution that when the normal chain is going and everybody's mining block by block, if there is suddenly a new chain coming in to perform a 51% attack, instead of blindly accepting it as the longest chain, what happens is that longest chain has to actually work much more, multiple times more, or has to use multiple times more computing power to be able to be accepted in the main chain. So MES is basically a configuration that all exchanges, mining pools, node operators, wallet operators have implemented, that basically tells the attacker, okay, if you want this chain to be the new longest chain, you have to work, say, hundreds of times more than the current difficulty to be able to perform the attack. So now that barrier has been imposed, it is highly unlikely that any new attacks are going to occur. The other thing that happened is that Fhash, which was the mining algorithm that was identical both in Ethereum and ETC, and made it very easy to redirect hashing power to ETC to attack it, has been changed in ETC. Now the current mining algorithm in ETC is ETC hash. It's not ETH hash. It's not Fhash anymore. So now what that permitted is, it's not a totally clean solution because it's very similar. So machines can still redirect and reconfigure and more or less mine with ETC hash. But it also made it easier for other machines that were already out of Ethereum because they were too small to continue mining in Ethereum, to start mining in ETC. No, it reduced a little bit the barrier for Ethereum, for old machines to also mine in ETC. So that increases the base of machines who can mine ETC and increases the hash power. So those two things, MES and changing the mining algorithm to ETC hash, at this point may make it practically impossible to tamper with it, or to reorganize ETC again.
All right. Looks like you answered a lot of my questions. I was going to ask you about MES and ETC hash, but you didn't speak about SHA-3. So do you have anything to say about SHA-3, and is it possible that we're going to switch to that anytime soon?
Yes, I think Ethereum Classic, speaking of its history, when Ethereum forked away from the mainnet, from Ethereum Classic, one thing that the developers did was to modify the monetary policy, because the previous monetary policy was like Dogecoin. It was every block it printed 5 new coins, and it was forever. It was perpetual. So there was an idea that it was better to imitate the monetary policy of Bitcoin. So now they implemented a new monetary policy in 2017, where ETC basically is identical to Bitcoin in the sense that Bitcoin is going to have 21 million maximum amount of coins, and ETC is going to have more or less 210 million. So it follows more or less the same path as Bitcoin, and it's also going to be by the year 2140. So that's one thing. The other thing that ETC did historically as a big change was that Ethereum originally, it had what is called a difficulty bomb, that what basically the developers did to force the community to migrate to Ethereum 2.0 and to proof of stake, which is Ethereum 2.0. What they put is an artificial increase in the difficulty of mining in the futures. No, so in 2015 it was set for 2016, for example, and that meant that in 2016 the difficulty, instead of adjusting every day a little bit to adjust to the hashing power, it started to go up, and the blocks started to get longer, and that was done on purpose on Ethereum to force the community to migrate to proof of stake. In Ethereum, what they did is they had postponed it several times because their technology hasn't been ready yet to move to proof of stake, which apparently it is going to be ready by the end of this year. But it hasn't been ready. So since 2015, they've been postponing this difficulty bomb. And the last postponement, I think it was like last month for 9 more months. In the case of Ethereum Classic, because Ethereum Classic is a code's law, proof of work based blockchain, it is that difficulty bomb is not necessary because Ethereum Classic is never going to migrate to proof of stake or any other model, no, other than Nakamoto consensus. So that was the second thing that was done by developers. They removed that thing. That was the second. And I would say that migrating from ETC hash, which is the current algorithm, to SHA-3, for me is the third biggest change in Ethereum Classic. I think it's a very important change. And it is a very important change because first, ETC hash, like I said before, is not completely secure because Ethereum machines that are mining ETH hash could still reconfigure their machines and attack ETC. So a definitive way of moving away from that threat would be to move to SHA-3. There's one like conventional wisdom in the blockchain industry is that if you have a unique mining algorithm that no other big blockchain has, then you are pretty much protected because there's no accumulated computing power already dedicated to another chain that could be redirected to your chain. So that is one thing that why I think that is extremely important for Ethereum Classic to complete this change to SHA-3. And the other one is because SHA-3 is an extremely highly secure algorithm by itself. It is a standard, a global standard that is accepted by all governments and all entities and corporations, etc., which ETH hash and ETC hash are not. ETH hash and ETC hash are really hacks that they were done because the ideology of Ethereum developers was that for some reason proof of work was bad, so they had to create ETH hash that created the difficulty for ASICs. Proof of work was bad and ASICs were bad. So because they didn't want ASICs, which are dedicated machines, they created ETH hash that imposes a barrier and makes it an algorithm that is optimal for GPU mining instead of CPU mining. What ETC is doing is going back to SHA-3, which is CPU mining, and Ethereum Classic doesn't mind whether people are using dedicated machines or not, because mining does not centralize, as proven by Bitcoin, does not centralize just by using a clean algorithm. In the case of Bitcoin, they use SHA-256, and SHA-3 is the next generation after SHA-256. And the fact that it is such a globally accepted algorithm because of its security and it's standardized and it's tested by all the appropriate organisms that do all of these tests and approvals, makes Ethereum Classic much more palatable and acceptable for corporations, governments, banks to use. Because a bank, when they start using a blockchain, Bitcoin is fine because it's a standard, it's all standard technology, and they trust that kind of security. But Ethereum, that uses ETH hash, that is a non-standard technology that they are not immediately approved to use. No, so regulators are very concerned about those things. Banks are not only regulated for how they manage money and who their clients are, but they're also regulated in terms of what technology they use. Banks and many other companies. So this is why I think first the migration is highly likely that it's going to happen because of the 3 developer teams working on Ethereum Classic, 2 have already implemented them in their clients and are already testing them in a special testnet called Astor. And the other team has it under consideration. It was already submitted for their clients, and has it under consideration. And if they don't, if they delay it or they decide not to do it, their client is going to be forked and is going to be implemented with SHA-3 and is going to be launched with SHA-3, even if they don't like it. So I think it would be, I would say, it's highly unlikely that it doesn't happen.